Hello, it's Ryan French here from BMF Blackheath and Shoreditch. So today it's another session of Monday Motivation, and we've already delivered this one live, so I'm re-recording it just so people could share some personal information they might want to share on the live one. We're going to run through the resilience and optimism session today. Hopefully you've got a goal now that's set and you're ready to start making some strides forward to achieving that goal. And if you have got any questions related to goal set, anything that you're stuck on, please do either send me an email direct, so ryan.french@bmilitaryfit.com, or contact your franchise owner to ask for a little bit of help on setting your goal. So we're going to get started on our session today. So it might be a bit of a new topic for some of you, but let's get started on it. So resilience and optimism. So anyone that doesn't know me, my name's Ryan French, and as well as running the Blackheath and Shoreditch Parks in MEF, I also teach business owners new skills that help develop them to make them more productive and more efficient, not only in working life, but also in their personal life as well. And I originally designed this course that I'm going to be teaching you today. Originally designed it for the workplace. So using my experience as a professional boxer and as a sports science graduate, we wanted to bridge the gap between sport and business to leverage the psychological attributes that elite athletes have, leverage those and bring them over into the business world. And in fact, what we have noticed is that elite business people often, they possess the similar psychological characteristics as elite athletes. And now, why is this important for you guys in BMF? Well, we can also piggyback those skills. We can leverage those skills to help you along your goal achieving journey in BMF and also in overall fitness. So what qualifies me to talk about this topic? So just touched on it there, but I also, the tools that we're going to be talking to you about today, for me, I've got to the position that I have in my life as a result of learning how to have a resilient and optimistic mindset. So being able to go through a challenge and a problem and flip it on its head, find the positives and keep working forwards. Or it might be you flip it on its head, turn it into a positive, but realize you need to go in a different direction. And I will touch on that a little bit later. So what I'm going to ask you today is to try and keep an open mind. There might be some stuff in this talk today that it's a bit novel. You've never attempted to do this stuff, and you might think, how is this going to help me? But in my experience, if you can try and just implement one thing that you learn from today's session, then you will see the results. And it's like anything in life. If you can just you can try and implement one thing after another instead of trying to do too much at once, then you won't overload your system. Because if you try and do too much too fast, like when you enter into a fitness training program, if you try and change too much too fast, there's every chance that you'll have a behavior relapse and end up going back to where you were before you started. So small gradual changes over time, that's how we have a sustainable change. So today's objectives: learn how to stay positive or to maintain a positive mindset. So you're going to understand how to create a positive atmosphere for the rest of your team. And I've used the word team there because it's not only am I talking about team within your working environment, but it could be team as in you and your partner at home, your team as in your household, or your team as in team within BMF. So when you turn up to a BMF session, or at the moment, of course, because of COVID, turn up with your buddy system, making you a more positive influence for you and your training buddy. And also, you're going to learn some new ways to respond to adverse times, helping you to capitalize on those situations as opposed to get lost in negative thought. I'm going to show you some techniques and how to avoid burnout, or at least notice it when it's happening, when you can feel the onset of burnout happening, so you can try and implement some tools or techniques to stop you going further down that that slope. An introduction into mindfulness, and some of you might have cringed a little bit at the word mindfulness there, but I have to say it's something I do try to practice on a daily basis. It might only be for a couple of minutes each day, but I can assure you it's something that if you're wanting to build a resilient and optimistic mindset, this is something that can really help and propel you along that way. In fact, you'll leave this session feeling like you have a little bit more knowledge about the impact and also the benefits what staying positive can have on you and your life. Now, this is an exercise that we did in a live session. We was able to set people up into breakout rooms in little groups of 3s and 4, so they're able to discuss amongst themselves what psychological characteristics make up an elite athlete's psychology. And at this point, what I'd really like you to do is just press pause on the video, get your notepad and pen out, and just jot down a few ideas that come to you before you just watch on. Try and get that thinking cap on now and try and think to yourself, well, what is it that makes someone like Anthony Joshua such an awesome athlete? What was it about Jessica Ennis that made her so effective in athletics? All of these real prominent characters like Mo Farah, all these guys, what is it that they possess that gives them a leg up when looking at other athletes? What is it about Usain Bolt? I mean, for me, if I think of Usain Bolt, I think of a particular characteristic about him that made him so good on the track. So now I just think about these people and now start listing those characteristics. Press pause, and then I'm going to carry on. So this is an exhaustive list, by the way. Okay, there are clearly some more that you can add to this list. It's just to give you a rough idea as a sort of characteristics what you would expect to see from an elite athlete. So high self-confidence. So someone like Anthony Joshua, using him as an example again, I mean, he's very humble. That is what he's really known for. He's got a higher level of confidence about himself, but he's humble with it. But anyone who's old enough to remember Prince Nassim Hamid, he was confident, but also he not borderline. He was incredibly arrogant with his confidence. So there is a line. There is a line to be had with it, and quite often boxers get that one wrong. So high self-confidence, motivation. So having a high level of motivation in themselves, being motivated to get up and go running at 4 o'clock in the morning when people are still asleep. They don't need their coach phoning them up at that time in the morning, getting them out the front door. Self-determination, having a high level of self-determination. Once again, don't need to have that person on your back every day giving you a call, telling you to get out that door. And this also ties in nicely with goals, because if your goal is sufficiently high, then you won't need to have a BMF instructor like me calling you up saying, have you done your extra runs this week? Have you booked in your BMF classes this week? Clearly, you turn up to your BMF class and we motivate you, we get you to train, but you've got to have that level of self-determination, motivation to get along to the class. And if you've got a sufficiently motivational goal, so your goal motivates you enough, then that should do the trick. So if it's not there, you need to relook at your goals and say, well, do I really want this goal, or am I just writing it down for the sake of writing it down? Your goal should give you the fire in the belly. It should give you that motivation to get out that door and get running when everyone else is still sleeping or everyone else is still working. Mental toughness, and this is relatively in its infancy, in its research within the scientific sports science literature. It's been around for about 15 years, I think, 10, 15 years. One of my lecturers at university was one of the guys that really trying to push this forward, mental toughness, and it's having it's like unshakable mental resilience. And this is what mental toughness refers to. And you only have to look at a few. You have to look at elite sports, whatever field they're in. They have this level. The ones that really go on to succeed and become legends in their field, these are the ones that have this unshakable mental toughness or mental resilience. So remaining positive in the face of adversity. So regardless of what's going on the pitch or in the ring or out on the track, regardless of that, you're able to maintain a positive mindset, always looking for those opportunities, those catalysts for a turn in the play, a chance where you can turn the luck in your favor. If you're able to maintain a positive mindset, then you're much more able to notice those chances when they arise, rather than being bogged down in negativity, because everything that presents itself will be a problem. There won't be a solution there. And it's the same thing with you. Is turn it back round now and talking about a goal achieving journey for you now, whatever it be, whether you want to run a faster mile, whether you want to build a bit more muscle and lose some fat, whatever your goal is, if you can maintain that positive mindset along your goal achieving journey, whatever happens, you'll be much more likely, even if you get injured or whatever, you'll still be able to turn that on its head and think more positively, and continue to work towards your goal rather. So unshakable mental resilience, which is closely linked with mental toughness. So yes, if you do have anything to add to that, hopefully you have. Hopefully you've already wrote down a few things that you want to add to that list. So importantly now, are there any of these attributes that you already have, or any of these attributes that you think, you know what, I do have that? But importantly, what of these do you think you can work on? What of these attributes do you think, do you know what, I really do need to build that and improve that part of my mindset? And how are you going to do that, you ask? Well, by putting yourself in those situations, in those challenging situations that encourage those psychological attributes to develop. Because if you think about when you're training, so when you're going for a training program, if I wanted to improve my my bench press, what I would need to do is I would need to put a heavy load on that bar relatively, so not too heavy, because I need to be able to press it, but put a heavy load on that bar so I can press it, so I can create stress on those muscles, so it could create small little micro tears in those muscles, so then they rebuild bigger and stronger next time. And it's the same thing with your mindset. You need to ensure that you're putting yourself in a challenging environment, not too challenging, because then you'll end up just giving up altogether. It needs to be a challenging situation that's going to challenge your ability to be self-confident. It's going to challenge your ability to stay positive in adversity. So these situations, whether you might be petrified of public speaking, so you could sign up for a few public speaking events, go to a public speaking course, whatever. So just put yourself in those situations that challenge those parts of your mindset to help you improve. So I've worked in a few environments over the years, from going through a basic training in the military, and then going through various training and exercise when I got to my battalion. Then I was working as a tradesman before I joined the army, and then I also worked as a tradesman as I left the army. Then I worked on sales floors, high pressure sales environments. And all of these environments, what they have in common is that you need to ensure that you've got the right mindset. You need to, like, whether that be in professional boxing or doing what I'm doing now as a fitness instructor, and also as a franchise owner. You need to ensure that you've got these well-rounded psychological skills that enable you to continue to perform regardless of what's going on externally. So one thing's for certain, the only thing you can control is yourself. The external, what's going on externally, is always going to be out of your control. So high pressure environment, whatever that environment is, require a focused and positive mindset. So, oh, there's a typo on there. if you do not self evaluate your faults, this can lead to poor health, and your performance will be affected. And also, it also strain your relationships that that you have, whether that be personal relationships at home or working relationships, or relationships with fellow BMFers. All right, so if you turn up to a session and you're going for a really hard session, and you're unable to evaluate after what you did wrong or what you could have done better, then you'll continue to make those same mistakes. So having the ability to evaluate what you've done and what you didn't do, that will help you to move forward and have much less chance of you having an impact on your personal relationships. And I have to say, I passionately believe in this topic, and I really do try to implement these tools on a daily basis that we're going to be talking about today. All right, so I really do ask you to to just try and implement one. If you can implement one of these today, and I would really like to hear what sort of results you've had as a result of it. There is no magic pill for this stuff, right? You're not going to attend this resilience and optimism seminar and then expect to just leave here and have it down to a T. So one thing's for certain though, you'll probably leave here feeling a bit more motivated and feel like, yeah, do you know what? I related to that. I think I could do that, but that's not going to be enough. All right. You have to put in the action. It's like just writing a training program and looking at the training program isn't going to get you fit. You've got to actually implement what's on that training program to see the results. And this is no different. So once again, the live session, we split people up into breakout rooms at this point. And all I want you to do now is once again just pause it and just think about why you think resilience and optimism are important in the pursuit of your fitness goals and in life. Maybe you don't think they are important. Maybe you think, do you know what? I think this is a bit of a waste of time. That's fine. Write that down. Write down why you think that. But if you are like me, you think, yeah, well, these things are really important. I'd like you to now just put your thinking cap on again and write down some things that you think are important about it. Pause the clip now and write it. Okay, so let's carry on. So it is, this is what, in my experience, this is what having a resilient, optimistic mindset helps you to perform better. So I'm not just talking about in the workplace here, it's also in your personal life. It helps you perform, but helps me be a better dad, helps me be a better husband, helps me be a better son or brother. All of these things, this is what this stuff helps me to do. Helps me to feel happier and more content in my own skin. And ultimately, that's what this is all about. It's great when you start seeing the results, whether you start earning more money at work, you start have a more loving, more content relationship with your partner. And you're able to have a much more consistent and a loving relationship with your children. That's all great. You're able to then hit your fitness targets and goals. That is absolutely what this is all about. But the bottom line is, if I'm not happy and I'm not content, the rest of it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what I've got externally if I'm not comfortable and happy in myself. And this is what this stuff will do. It will give you the tools for you to have control over your state of mind. It's not going to be easy though. Help you to stay motivated. So it'll increase longevity and consistency with your fitness program. So it'll help to stop the yo-yo, stopping and starting. It'll give you, because that is the art of this fitness game is consistency. Being consistent on those daily actions, whether it be going to a fitness class one day, going for a walk the next, being consistent with your diet. Consistency is key. And help you work better as part of a team. Once again, referring to team on a broader sense, not just at work. So for me, in solutions orientated as opposed to problem focused, it's a really important benefit of working this stuff that I'm going to show you today. So what's resilience all about? What does that help you? Why does it help you? So the research says that being resilient helps you to bounce back. All right, it helps you to come back after a setback. So for you on a fitness training program, it could be you get injured. So having the ability to bounce back from that and not drift and wallow in self-pity. So self-pity we will touch on a bit later. So ruminating. So stopping that, the incessant mulling over or the obsessive mulling over stuff when they go wrong. So that negative chatter in the back of your head. So having that resilient mindset will help to stop that. All right, it will help you. You're not going to get a resilient mindset by saying, "Oh, I want a really resilient mindset." You need to work at it. It's going to take time. So ruminating over what went wrong, or reflecting is a much better word in my opinion. Reflecting on what happened and what went wrong is a good thing, because it helps you to evaluate what went wrong so you can then correct it and try and reduce the chances of it happening again. All right, so it can be a good thing. But this is what I always say. You want to look back at a mistake, but don't stare at it. So look at it, but don't stare, because when you start staring at it, that's when the negative emotions start feeling, not in the stomach. You're starting to feel low about yourself. Your self-esteem gets affected. You're wasting a lot of time and energy staring at this problem instead of just looking at it, evaluating it, reflecting on it. Write down the corrective measures that you want to take for next time and move on. So yeah, it doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge the mistakes. And by doing this stuff, what this will do is help you to keep an internal peace and serenity regardless of what external situations are going on, like my phone just going off. Should have put it on silent. So yeah, this internal peace and serenity. So that sort of touches on what I was talking about earlier. So having the ability to maintain and control your own reaction, because your own reaction is the only thing that you have control over. You can't control anything that goes on externally. So therefore, what's the point me wasting time in getting bent out of shape and stressed over what's gone on out here? Let me just focus on maintaining my reaction to it, because my reaction to it will determine how I feel about it. And by doing this, you'll be sharper, much sharper, mentally switched on, and you're much less likely to feel fatigue, because a lot of the time with this stuff, there's a perception of fatigue. All right. So I can be in exactly the same situation, the same scenario. One scenario is I've not had much sleep. I've gone to work, had a really busy day at work, but every problem that's presented itself, I've flipped it on its head and tried to find a solution. And day two, I've got exactly the same situation, not had much sleep, had a really rough day. But every problem that's presented, I've just fell victim to that negative chatter in the back of my head. I've made no effort to try and flip it on its head and find a positive. And by making no effort to do that, guess what? I start to feel more tired. I feel like I'm walking through thick mud. Everything feels like it's an effort. I feel slow, lethargic. The perception of fatigue. The two situations, I know that because of my experience, two situations that are exactly the same in terms of the external world, in terms of my sleep, exactly the same. The only difference is my internal response to my problems. So this stuff will help you to train harder and smarter. So smarter means that you don't always have to be going out and smashing yourself. All right, you can accept that some days you're not going to have good days. All right, some days you'll turn up to a BMF class and you'll not feel like you're firing on all cylinders. That's okay. You're a human being. You're not a machine. Allow yourself those times, maybe having an off day, you can then look back at it, reflect on it. What did you do wrong? What didn't you do in prep for that session? And you can move on instead of letting those situations. It's all happening today. Phones going off, emails going off. So it doesn't matter, regardless of what's going on, what you've done in your fitness class. If you're able to just bounce back and have a resilient mindset, you can move on and carry on making steps towards your goal. So how do you increase a resilient and optimistic mindset? So for me, having this optimistic and resilient mindset, it creates an environment which gives you more hope and more faith that it will all come good in the end. All right. Doesn't mean to say that you sit back and just say, oh, it'll be all right. You still have to put the work in. You still have to try and find the solutions. But it just means that if a problem presents itself, your first thought is, let's attack it. It's not, oh no, I can't do it. But that's not to say that you might get that thought, because for me, I can't control my first thought. The first thought that comes in sometimes is quite a negative one. What I can do is I can control my second thought, my third thought, my fifth thought. And that's the thought that I want to run with, not that first one. So, and that's pretty much what this next point says here. So replace negative thoughts with positive ones. So if your first thought is a negative thought, you can flip it on its head and choose a more positive second thought, a more solution orientated second thought. So you can act more positively. So what that means, it means that you could, even if you're not feeling, I'm not saying that, so even if you're not feeling 100% or 100% happy, you can still act positively. You can still try and be that positive influence in your circle of friends, with your colleagues. If you've got a problem that you really can't get to the bottom of, you might need to go and speak to someone professionally. You might need to speak to someone and say, look, I've got this problem that I can't get my head around. What do you think I should do? Go to that person who you normally go to for advice, and someone that you trust. Take their guidance. But everywhere else, try and be that positive influence. Try and be the positive energy. Try and bring that positive energy to a situation instead of being a negative drain on the environment. So you can start with small actions. Don't have to be huge actions that you're doing. You don't need to be this martyr. All right, it can be really small actions. So it could be, if you're able to commute to work still at the moment, because I know with COVID and the lockdown and things like that, I mean, most people are working from home, but I do know there are some people that still commute. So if the train's busy, you should give your seat up. And I'm not saying you stand up and say, hello, come and take my seat, because what you're doing there is you're asking something. You want someone to pat you on the back. You're looking for a bit of an ego massage, someone to tell you how kind you are, giving their seat away, and that's actually achieving the opposite. So what I would suggest is you just stand up, go and stand by the door, and let someone else have your seat. That you've given them your seat, and they don't even know it. You've done a nice thing, and you're not expecting a fanfare. Smile at someone on the train, that might make some of you feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm not suggesting you do some creepy smile. All right, so you could be just trying to spread a little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy into someone else's world. I know when it's happened to me, it's made me feel really uplifted. So you can be that positive energy in someone else's life. Do charity work, and once again, you could start small with this one. Something as simple as buying a homeless person a drink, buying a homeless person something to eat, giving your time to a local charity. Because one thing's for certain, charities at the moment, they need support and help. Find a local charity. If you've got the money, donate a small amount of money. Make yourself feel a bit good. Not a bit good, make yourself feel good. We don't want a bit good. Who wants a bit good? We want to feel really good. So, and it's all this stuff here just helps you increase your self-esteem, which is the way you feel about yourself. So if you're feeling good about yourself, you got much more chance of being able to maintain a positive frame of mind, which will then have a nice correlation with staying resilient in adverse times. So you taking a step back. So this will help you just to, if you take a step back, it'll give you that opportunity to have a bit of breathing space between thoughts and action. Now that's a big deal, giving yourself an opportunity to have a breather in between thought and action, that space in between. All right. So what I mean is, if you have negative first thought and your normal reaction is to react and respond straight away, then, or react to that, because the response is different. When you respond to something, it's more calculated, it's more thought. But a reaction is, you have the thought, someone does something that you think is unfair, you have the thought, and then you act straight away. All right. So what you want to try and do is take a step back, give yourself that time between thought and action, and give yourself some time. Anyone would have thought I wrote these slides. So mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? So for me, mindfulness is about being absolutely consumed in a positive sense in a present moment. It's being immersed in a present moment. It could be, so you walk out the front door and you experience wind on your face, and you're letting yourself experience that wind touch your face, trying to experience all the sensations of that wind. How does it feel on each part of my face? It might be you've got a cup of tea, nice great big cup of tea, and you've got the cup in your hand, or you bought a coffee from a coffee shop, and you're experiencing what the cup feels like in your hand, the sensation of the cup in your fingers. So you're bringing yourself centered into the present moment and how that cup feels, and you have a drink of that tea, and you're trying to experience this cold cup of tea, trying to experience that sensation of the tea moving down your esophagus. What does it feel like as it moves through, the taste of it, the smell of it? So you're bringing yourself completely present, experiencing that tea. So being more mindful can solve your problems. It really can. So having that, the ability to bring yourself, what you could be in a tornado, metaphorically speaking, it could be all going off in the workplace, at home, children running around smashing things up. But if you're present, you're able to assess your thought processes at that point, take a breather, take a step back, and respond instead of react. That's the key part there. So make a choice to respond in a positive sense as opposed to a negative one. So being in a present moment. So yeah, give all the attention on your focus on whatever task it is you're doing at that moment in time. So yeah, how does your cup feel when you're having a drink? Yeah. So you try this stuff for a few minutes each day. I'm not saying every single cup of tea that you have, you're going to be able to drink in a mindful way, but just try and be conscious at some points in a day instead of unconsciously moving through your day. So watching telly, but not really watching telly, whatever it is you're doing, eating your dinner, but not really eating your dinner because you're thinking about what you've done at work that day. You're thinking about what you've got to do tomorrow. You're not really tasting it. Taking any opportunity to compliment whoever it is that made you your dinner, compliment them on a nice dinner. If you made yourself your dinner, give yourself a pat on the back and say, I've done a great job with this dinner. All this stuff will help you. And actually that brings me on to being able to express a little bit of gratitude in your life as well. And that sort of ties in with what we were talking about earlier about how to develop a resilient mindset, being more grateful. I at the end of each day, for me, I write a gratitude list. So 10 things at the end of each day that I know I either am grateful for or I should be grateful for, because some days I have days where I'm not that grateful. I'm feeling a little bit entitled. On those days, it's even more important to express an attitude of gratitude. And all of this stuff might seem away with the fairies and up in the clouds, but I can assure you, try some of this stuff and it does work. So yeah, so your responses, all right. So the way we've touched on this already, so I don't need to go over this too much, but there's a few things in here that I haven't covered. So the way you respond to a situation will ultimately determine how you feel about it. So here's a workplace example. Okay, a recent project failed and your boss or your client gave you some really bad feedback. What could happen next internally? So you might start thinking obsessively about how bad this has made you look, your boss or your client, or you might start thinking you're a failure. And the interesting thing about this is you overlook all of the times in which you've received positive feedback, or you've overlooked all of the times in which you've delivered successful projects in favor of this one time or these several times in which you've received bad feedback. So the mind is a very powerful tool, and if you use it the right way, it can propel you onto something much, much better and a much more positive line of flight. And then and equally, if you don't use your mind to work with you and it works against you, it can really drag you down. All right, so just really try and implement these positive strategies and you will see the results. So a fitness example now. So just say you get injured 6 weeks into a 12-week training program, making good progress, and it looked like you were going to smash your targets. What could happen next? So you could drift into self-pity. So self-pity, I touched on that earlier. So there's a difference between self-pity and being sad about it, right? Because of course you're going to be upset if this happens. Of course you're going to feel sad about it, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel those emotions. But when that sadness drifts into self-pity and you start to wallow about it, that's when you're in trouble. That's when you're much more likely to start drifting away from your training program. You'll start to worry potentially about what people think about you. You might start thinking people think that you're not strong enough, that you didn't really get injured, you just gave up. These are the sorts of toxic mind patterns that can really prevent you from hitting your targets. Yeah, so so if you start, once again, if you could fall out of love of your training program, you could fall out of the habit with those going down those mind patterns there. Right. So what could you do? All right. So if you feel yourself, if you do have a setback, or you get injured, or you do something at work that didn't go too smoothly, what can you do? So give yourself some time for the dust to settle. And then once you've given that time for the dust to settle, you have a big sigh of relief. You can look back over the areas in which you went wrong, or the injury that happened. What is it that you can improve for next time? How could you find support, all right, to help you through this situation that you find yourself in? So it might be in a workplace environment, you might need to book a meeting in with your boss or your client to try and put your finger on what went wrong and how you can improve it for next time. And the injury example you might do is book an appointment with a doctor or a physio to try and find out what recovery strategies you need in place to help you recover faster. But you could also look at, what is it I did before the training session before I got injured? Did I turn up unprepared? Did I not do a proper warm-up? Did I have a heavy night the night before and I wasn't paying attention and I slipped down and twisted my ankle? Whatever it is, the most important thing here for me is that you take ownership of it. I'm not saying that you blame yourself if something went wrong, because that's most certainly what you don't want to do, but you need to own the situation. You need to look at the areas in which you can improve, because if you point the finger out, you should always look at the three fingers that are pointing back at you, all right? Because all the time you keep pointing the finger out and blaming X, Y, and Z for the reason why something went wrong, you're never going to improve. You need to own the situation, own it, and then move on. So yeah, our responses to a situation is what makes us feel bad, okay, as we've already said today. So we do naturally give ourselves a hard time, all right? That is quite a common attribute for us as human beings, but recognizing it and understanding that this is what you do can help you to improve it, all right? Because if you unconsciously giving yourself a hard time, then you'll continue to make that same pattern. The minute you become aware of something, then it gives you the opportunity to change it. So try and think about all those times in which you've had success. Try and think about all those times in which you've performed well under pressure. Try and think about all those times that you've delivered a good project at work. Try and deliver all that. Try and think about all those times where you have hit certain goals before, to help give you the confidence to continue moving forwards. So once the dust has settled, you can revisit the problem or the mishap that you had to find out what corrective steps you need to make. And I have to say, regular practice of this stuff will help you become more resilient. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be times where you want to give in to that negative thought, because it's the easiest, the habitual, the default response to a problem is, oh, why does this always happen to me? And that might be, but it's up to you now to decide how long you want to sit in that negative energy, or how long you want to wait until you implement these positive tools to get yourself out of it. And this might be talking to someone, all right? So I'm not saying you have to suffer in silence with this stuff. It might be, do you know what, this problem is so big, I can't put my finger on it. This problem is so big, I can't find a way to get out of it by myself. So therefore, I need to find someone, a professional who can help me, whether that be a counsellor, a psychotherapist, it might be a friend, someone who you can just chew the fat with, to throw some ideas out, to try and put your finger on what's going on. So the biggest problem that I find, for me anyway, is that if I do receive some negative feedback, it might be from a BMF member, for example, or constructive feedback, my fault straight away is I start now trying to predict what everyone else is thinking. Or it might be when I delivered this seminar live, if I tried some pathetic examples of or attempts at humour and no one laughed, I might then start judging myself. No one's enjoying this seminar, I'm terrible at it. But that's all going on inside my head. I've got no idea what anyone's thinking. All right, so don't waste any time trying to predict or try and tell what anyone else is thinking about you. All right, so try not to predict that. Try not to think about what other people are thinking about you, because that's only going to waste a lot of time and your energy. So now I'd like you to have a little think about how you think about yourself, and also think about how you talk when you're in social situations. Are you normally that negative influence? Are you normally that positive influence? And I would encourage you to be the latter. Try and be that person who turns up to a situation and you're the positive. It doesn't mean you need to be the life and soul of the party. It just means that you're positive. If someone's, you're not always going on about what's going on in the news, the negative situation that's going on in the news, whatever that happens to be. You're not always finding the negatives, complaining about the weather. All this stuff has the ability to just zap the morale out of a situation, and also just makes you feel bad. So just because you're talking positively all the time doesn't mean that you're always happy. It just means that you're making an effort to try and be positive. Yeah, so are you thinking or talking negatively? It's going to lower morale. So are you blaming others for the way that you're feeling? Yeah, we touched on that earlier. So just remember as well, no one's perfect. You're not going to get this right every day, and you're not going to get it right straight away. It's going to take time to get used to this. If you do notice that you are a negative person, that's not a bad thing. Don't leave this seminar and think, oh, I'm a bad person because I'm a negative influence. No way. The fact that you're here and you're listening to this stuff, that's a good thing. It means that you're willing. It means that you're willing to try implement some more positive strategies in your life to move forward, to be more resilient in adverse times. So try these tools. And this is an exhaustive list, by the way. You might think, do you know what? This list is missing some important things. I need to add it to it. So have a go. Print these, put them by your desk, put them on your fridge, wherever, somewhere you're going to see them every day to remind you what positive actions you can take in a negative or a stressful time. So try always to acknowledge what the facts are in the situation as opposed to just what your feelings are, because if your emotions can have a real impact on the way that you perceive a situation. So if you were a friend, what advice would you give yourself? All right, having the ability to take a bird's eye view on your life and then offer yourself guidance and what you would give a friend if they were going through the same situation can be a really useful tool. So allow time. It's a common theme today, giving yourself time to reflect. Really important. To do something in a moment. So if a challenging moment presents itself, do something at that moment to try and break that chain of thought, break that chain of negative thinking. Because negative thinking has a real way of just repeating, like a ball of fluff rolling down the road. It picks up more fluff. That's what negative thoughts do. They pick up more. So try and find something that's going to break that chain of thought. So get up, go get a coffee, and take a break. Might be put your running stuff on and go for a run. Phone up someone and ask them how they're doing. Break that chain of thought. If you know one of your friends or a colleague or someone is going for a hard time at the moment, pick up the phone and ask them how they're doing. Don't phone them up and then offload all of your problems onto them. Of course, if you need to speak to someone, then find someone who you can do that with. But if you know someone's going for a hard time, pick up the phone and say, how are you doing? Try and see if there's a way in which you can help them break that chain of thought. So do something that makes you feel good. So go and see a friend, do some exercise, go for a walk, listen to some music. All these real simple tools, they really do work. And they're so simple that a lot of people don't pick them up to do them, because when you're in that moment, a stressful moment, the last thing, if someone would suggest to you, if you're a bit stressed, do you know what, why don't you just get up and go and take a break? It's like, no, I need to get this sorted. So try and break that cycle of negative behavior. Give yourself some perspective on the situation that you find yourself in. Is it really that bad? Write down the facts of the situation so you can look at the facts in black and white and not the way you feel about it. And now this is your opportunity to try and flip it on its head. What opportunities have come as a result of this challenging situation? What can I learn from it? I know my experience, my last fight as a professional boxer, I got injured, which means I can't fight again. And that was a really hard period of time for me, trying to adjust to the notion that I was never going to fight again. I was never going to get my hands taped up again and go walk out to the ring and fight again. So I had to look at the opportunities and the positives in that situation. Well, the positive in that situation is I don't have to get punched in the face anymore, which is a real bonus. So just give yourself that chance to reflect and flip it on its head, and just remember that no one's perfect. And this is something that really helps me on a daily basis, having people that I can mentor or nurture through certain situations. And if you can find someone who's if someone comes to you going for a similar problem in which you've already been through and you managed to find a solution for, then you can really give yourself a real sense of purpose on that. All right, you can find someone who's, or not, don't seek out people that are that are going through a challenging time. But if an opportunity presents itself, then take it. Take that as your opportunity to do a bit of service, and that can, and in my experience, it makes you feel really good. You might have things that you want to add to that list, so please do. So maintain a positive atmosphere. So yeah, high pressure is commonplace in office scenarios, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this talk today have experienced that themselves. All right, so and high pressure situation is going to be different relative to the person who's experiencing it, right? What I might think is extremely stressful, you guys might not think it's stressful at all. All right, so it's important that you acknowledge that and understand that actually just because I'm finding it stressful and other people aren't, doesn't mean that I'm any less than them. Yeah, taking a step back, and just remember that we're all made up of the same stuff. All right, we are all, when you strip it all back to its bare bones, we are all the same. But obviously, the way that we respond in different situations and how we react is going to be different. All right, so just acknowledge that and accept that. If someone else is struggling and you can see that they're struggling, I know I'm guilty of this myself. I'm a very judgmental guy. My first thought is normally a judgment. But what I try and do is not follow through with that first thought and choose a more loving and compassionate second thought, because it's highly likely that anyone who's making mistakes or going through a hard time at work or in your personal life or whatever, it's highly likely that if they're making mistakes at work, for example, it's highly likely they've got some other stuff going on. So try and be that positive influence on that person's life. Try and be there for that person. Try and remember how you responded in similar situations, and just try and be a little bit more problem solutions orientated as opposed to problem focused. And just having that a bit of empathy can go a long way. Now, burnout is a massive topic, so I'm just going to touch on it today because I do appreciate it running out of time. So I am just going to touch on it, and I would encourage you to most certainly do some work finding out a little bit more, because it will most certainly help you. And so burnout, okay, can present itself in a way in which it does make you feel fatigued, because I've experienced it a few times. But if you can notice yourself feeling tired and more exhausted doing normal daily activities, and that might be a sign that you're starting to move down the road of burnout. So make sure you're giving yourself recovery in between sessions, because that one it can make you injured, and two, it can just have a massive impact on your mental state. So things that you were having, you are able to flip round into positives. It becomes a lot more challenging to turn a negative into a positive, because you're going through this high level of fatigue and ultimately burnout. But agile working. So of course, lockdown has presented many challenges, but for a lot of people and businesses, they realize that actually agile working works for us. We can actually have our employees working from home. Productivity is the same, but our staff are happier because they're able to be around their family more. Maybe you're not happier, maybe you like getting out of the house, but these sorts of ideas could, if you presented some more ideas to your boss or your colleagues, there might be a way in which you can maybe have a little bit more agile working, so working around family life instead of just working your 9 to 5. So offer some suggestions to your team you're at work. So get together once a month to do breakfast. So it might be at the moment, of course, via Zoom. You might get everyone together and everyone just do something that's not work related. So a fitness session, and wink, wink, nudge, nudge, BMF. We do corporate events. So this stuff, all these things can really help. So team building exercises that can be fun. These sorts of things will bring the team together, but also help to reduce the chance of a team being burnt out. And once again, pay attention to your fatigue levels and your recovery rate from that fatigue. If your recovery rate is a lot slower than usual, that could be a potential indication that you're becoming burnt out. So the conclusion, guys, thanks a lot for listening up until this point. Hopefully you've got some points there you can take away, you can implement into your daily life that will help you to not only start heading towards your fitness goals and being a little bit more focused, but ultimately hope you feel a bit happier and a bit more content in your own skin. So positive actions will help you to think more positively. So you might need to fake it to make it, start off with. Right, so just implement this stuff on a daily basis, and you'll start to feel the positive effect of it. Try not to take things too personally, which I am not very good at. Take responsibility for your own actions. Practice mindfulness and staying in the present moment. Make a choice to be happy. That's a big one. You can choose every single day to be happy. It's up to you to make that choice. And in my experience, it does work. All right. So choose to be happy every single day. Doesn't mean you're going to be happy every day, but try and make that choice. And guys, thank you so much for coming along today and listening to some books here that will help you along your pursuit of happiness. All right. So Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle quite literally changed my life. Zero Negativity by Ant Middleton. Great book. I finished that yesterday, actually. Really good book. It's only just been published. Really recommend that. How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Great books. Get stuck in with them, and please let me know how you're getting on with implementing this stuff. I really want to hear how this stuff is changing your life. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you soon.